There are some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, Sharon Reed with you guys. Sharon's, of course, one of the stars of Rebel HQ. You should check that out on YouTube. Big show ahead, Sharon, as you know. We've got Trump threatening to send US citizens now to El Salvador. We'll tell you the context of that. And are we gonna get the innocent guy back? Well, the president of El Salvador was here. We'll see what kind of progress we made on that, if any. Democrats hiding in shame if they're in the room with Donald Trump. Although Bill Maher doing the exact opposite. So there's a lot of interesting drama in there today, including in the markets and what in the world we're going to do with tariffs. It seems to change about twice a day. So Sharon, take it away.
Just twice a day? It seems like more.
Yeah.
Seems like more. Okay, we'll begin with messaging mayhem. Cenk, last Friday, the Trump administration announced a number of electronics now, including, but not limited to computers, smartphones, would be exempt for most of the steep tariffs imposed on China. But on Sunday, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick clarified that those exemptions are only temporary and those products will be getting hit with a new tariff soon. Let's watch Lutnick go back and forth with a baffled Jonathan Karl.
Let's start with that news late Friday, that this exemption on electronics, smartphones, laptop computers and the like. What's the thinking? Why the exemption?
Well, if you remember, over the past couple of months, President Trump has called out pharmaceuticals and semiconductors and autos. He called them sector tariffs, and those are not available for negotiation. They are just going to be part of making sure we reshore the core national security items that need to be made in this country. We need to make medicine in this country.
But wait a minute, I'm asking you about the exemption, not about, I mean, the notice that went out Friday night saying that electronics, a wide range of electronics, including smartphones, including components used to make microchips, that these are now exempt from the reciprocal tariffs. Why that move?
Well, remember, those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming.
So you're saying that the big tariffs on things like smartphones and laptops, iPhones, all those iPhones built in China, that those tariffs are temporarily off, but they're gonna be coming right back on in another form in a month or so? Or what are you saying?
Correct.
There's a lot more to this one, but Cenk, I guess, take us through that clip, your initial thoughts on, I guess, dissect it for us.
Yeah, so first we had global tariffs, and they were definitely gonna stick with those because that was gonna rebuild manufacturing in America. Then, okay, yeah, well, the stock market and the bond market crashes, so that was really inconvenient. So we got nothing in return for a concession that they're not going to be global tariffs. It's just going to be, yeah, some 10%, kind of bare minimum stuff across the board, but overall, mainly just on China, 145% on China. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we got them, China, and those are definitely gonna stay because we're rebuilding our manufacturing base here in America, okay, and we're gonna do it against the Chinese. Okay, fine, they're not gonna stay, they're not. We're gonna exempt electronics, so a lot of the things you buy from China, like your iPhones and things that are critical here in America, So we blinked. No, we're not going to do 145% tariff on those. So oops, that's the second giant concession with absolutely nothing in return. But wait, we're not done yet confusing you. Because now Lutnick is saying, well, yeah, now look, those tariffs are exempt, the iPhones, etc., from China, but they're sectoral tariffs, which we have not yet heard of, and they will be reapplied at a later date. What on God's green earth are you talking about? This is such a giant mess. Meanwhile, contradicted by other administration staffers at the same time. Guys, fish rots from the head down. How many times have we told you here? Donald Trump has no earthly idea what he's doing. There is no grand strategy, there is no art of the deal. He just throws stuff against the wall and see what sticks. So he's like, global tariffs, that didn't stick. 145% tariffs on China, that didn't stick. Exemptions, sectoral tariffs. Okay, what is this? So like every business person in the country is like, Jesus Christ, man, what are you doing? So should I manufacture here or shouldn't I? Should I import or shouldn't I? Do I still have a business or don't I? I don't know, tune in tomorrow, he'll change his mind 3 more times. So Sharon, as we give you the rest of the story here and we talk this through, one of the important things is, what are we trying to accomplish? How is it going to help the average American? And this is super important, what's going to happen next? Because I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen next, and it ain't pretty.
Well, he said he's fine with recession, Cenk, remember, just not depression. So wow, just great. Buckle up. And if you thought that was confusing, there's more where that came from. Let's listen to this exchange between Peter Navarro and Kristen Welker.
There's 3 kinds. There's the high-end chips, which is the AI future. Okay, we've got to get control of that. And then there's everything else that fuels our autos and on down.
Fair enough. I hear what you're saying on investigation, but there is currently an exclusion for some of those products.
You want to call it an exclusion, potatoes.
No, it's not.
What it is.
The White House called it an exclusion.
Well, but let's say, let's just. Here's, I think, another thing that's really important. When people talk about the chaos or lack of strategy, whatever, you just go back to day 1. I was there when the president signed it. It was the second to last order he signed. It was in the Oval that night. Yeah. And it was the America First trade policy, which laid out every single thing we're doing. And it would be remiss for anybody in the media not to review that carefully and see that there's rhyme to our reason and rhythm to what we're doing.
Why do they agree to go on these shows? From US Customs and Border Protection, listen to this. All products that are properly classified in these listed provisions will be excluded from the reciprocal tariffs imposed under Executive Order 14257. So you have that. Also took up Navarro's challenge to check out the America First trade policy. He directed us there. It is pretty long, but to sum it up briefly, it calls on the Trump administration to investigate trade deficits with other countries, especially China, and create a new trade policy. Okay, so they're all over this, and the devil's in the details. A new trade policy that promotes investment and productivity, enhances our nation's industrial and technological advantages, defends our economic and national security, and above all, benefits American workers, manufacturers, farmers, ranchers, entrepreneurs, and businesses. All the people who are hurting from the moment he pressed send on his new policy. Tariff whiplash has gotten so out of control that even Kevin O'Leary, I mean, he loves Donald Trump. He's fiercely defended Trump's tariffs, is now admitting Trump administration is not doing a good job of explaining their strategy. Watch this clip.
I know you think these. Tell me why.
I think we have a negotiation going on, as been detailed ad nauseum. It's a little chaotic from the point of view that you don't get a consistent message out of the administration. I admit that's a problem. Lutnick says one thing, and then Burgum says another. That's got to get cleaned up, and that's self-inflicted. They can fix that.
Now, he doesn't exactly blame, fish rots, okay? He doesn't blame Trump, but he's saying that they've got to clean up our act, Mr. Wonderful there. This morning on CNN, Harry Enton broke down a new poll that revealed Americans are feeling very worried about this economy, you think?
I believe this is the worst poll that Donald Trump has received in his second term, and we can go through it, Jessica. Let's talk about the economy, right? Think the economy is getting worse. Back in November, it was 42% of Americans. You don't have to be a genius to follow this timeline. By February, it was 49%, March, 51%. Look at where we are now, 53%. The clear majority of Americans think the economy is getting worse, and that number is rising. More responsible for the state of the economy, or the economic state. In March, CBS News asked about inflation, and 38% said it was Joe Biden who was more responsible, compared to 34% who said Donald Trump. Let's jump forward to now, in the month of April. Look at this number, 54% of Americans say that Donald Trump is more to blame for the state of the economy than Joe Biden. New tariffs on importing goods, oppose versus favor. You go back to January, look at this, 48% said they favored these new tariffs, these Donald Trump tariffs, compared to 46% who opposed. Look at where we are now in the CBS News YouGov poll. A switcheroo, Jessica, a switcheroo. The clear majority, 58% of Americans oppose these new tariffs, compared to just 42% who favor them.
He hasn't been in office that long, and he's been talking about Joe Biden day in and day out and how he's blaming Joe Biden for everything. And still, these are the numbers. It's hard to feel great about the economy, of course, with all of this happening in, well, just the last week alone. Like we said, whiplash, folks. It is that much. Just look at it. 1 week, and here we have it, okay? Universal reciprocal tariffs, a removal back down to 10%, 50% Chinese tariffs, 90% Chinese tariffs, 104% Chinese tariffs, 125% Chinese tariffs, 145 Chinese tariffs. Electronics exempted. Electronics now potentially back on. So I ask you, Cenk, why do they even bother to go on the shows, except it's, getting out their fake messaging, but perhaps just go on Truth Social for that. It's just comical if it didn't hurt so much, if it wasn't so painful. There is no rhyme or reason to this, except perhaps bullying and then showing that you have all the chess moves. You can make all this chaos happen. I mean, what is it?
Yeah, so there's two different things there. So one is how much they do media, and two is how they do the media. So in terms of how much media they do, I actually agree with them. Media is how you get your message out, and they should be doing it over and over and over again. Democrats don't do it nearly enough. So sending out a bunch of cabinet officials to send your message out, I get it. Like, for example, Stephen Miller and Caroline Levitt are all over TV pretending that the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in their favor when they actually ruled 9-0 against them. But they're saying it so much, the right-wing media is picking it up, and now they've convinced at least half the right wing that the Supreme Court ruled with the Trump administration instead of against the Trump administration. So that's the power of propaganda, and you use media to do it. So to me, that's not the issue. The issue is, if you are a competent administration, and again, if you're in the right wing, you should be more mad at them than I am, because they're not doing this in any way that helps your cause. Like, what you would do is, hey, these cabinet officials are going to go on, or other advisors are going to go on TV this weekend. So before you all go on, let's get on a call and figure out what our message is and be sure that we're clear, especially because the president doesn't know what the hell he's doing and changes his mind every other, I was gonna say every other day, but really, as we said earlier, about twice a day, right? So if I was a Trump guy and I was gonna go on TV, I would call Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and say, tell me exactly where we are right now, right? And then I'd ask her, now what's the percentage chance that Trump's gonna change in the next 4 hours, 6 hours, et cetera, right? But the bottom line is, I'd have a battle plan for my side and to get my message out. And it's super obvious from the tape, you can see it with your own eyes, they don't have a battle plan. They're not coordinating, and they're saying different things, which, by the way, everything that the Trump administration says affects the markets. Because then the markets are like, oh, it's trades back on. No, the tariffs are back on. Oh, this, that, the other thing. And it's moving the markets in so many different ways. And it's affecting people's ability to plan. That's what I was referring to earlier. So a lot of the business in this country overhype their need for stability. Like if you ever tweak anything in the government, they're like, no, we must protect the status quo. We need stability. So that's 90% of the time, that's just an excuse, right? But they base it on a kernel of truth. It's true that businesses need some degree of stability to be able to plan. Are there huge imports, small imports, or huge tariffs, no tariffs, or some tariffs, so I can know, do I build, do I bring in products? How do I plan for the rest of my year and the rest of the next couple of years? This is very normal in the business world, right? So now they can't do any planning, because every time they make a plan, then Trump changes it and then changes it again and changes it again. So now everything's going haywire. Not only is Trump changing it, everyone from the Trump team is saying something different on TV. So everybody's, including their supporters like Kevin O'Leary, are just throwing up their hands and their cameras apparently, that's why a quarter of his face was showing, and saying like, I don't know what's going on here. I mean, how could you possibly know? So yeah, this is super disorganized. Why? Trump never plans anything. If I was gonna do tariffs, I'd have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. Plan B would be, hey, what if the markets go south? How long are we going to let them go south? Is there a number at which we say, hey, wait, this has gone too far? How long do we plan to do X, Y, or Z? But they haven't planned any of that, any of it. It is, as usual, deep incompetence, because the president is super lazy and he thinks he's a genius. So he just flies off the handle. Oh yeah, tariffs against China, 104%, 125%, 145%. Come on, man, Jesus Christ. So you don't have to be left wing to see that looks like a clown move. One after another after another. So finally, this is the most important part. What's gonna happen in the future? So I'm gonna read one of our members' comments here. He's from Canada, but is this soon gonna apply to America as well? He said, yeah, the tariffs finally affected me. I live in a small community in Canada and I have to look for new employment because my employer lost some contracts due to delays attributed to tariffs. So, okay, so that happens to be in Canada, but that's gonna happen all over America because the same exact phenomenon. The employers don't know, do I hire, do I fire? Do I have enough money to hire people? Do I have enough money to keep people? The first immediate problem with the stock market turning down is not how it affects rich people or corporations. It's how it affects your 401k. Okay, so we got that. But depending on the situation, we can get past that, right? The second way that it affects people is if it goes dramatically down, then businesses start to tighten up and they stop hiring and they start firing, right? So that's what's coming next. And then the third thing that happens is that because they now have this huge cost added on top, they're going to start increasing prices. Now, because he pulled a lot of the tariffs back, it won't be as universal as it was, but still, these are some significant tariffs on plenty of places. So you're not gonna see all of your prices going up, but now you're gonna see prices pop one after another in places you don't expect. Oh, you go to buy a car, now the car costs 20% more. What the hell, what just happened? Et cetera, et cetera. And you know what that's going to do? That's gonna drive his poll numbers way down. Because those numbers that Enton showed are before people have actually started to get affected in their personal lives. Once they start getting affected, they're gonna be mad. What was the number one reason they elected Trump? Because of inflation. And what did he just do? He just poured an enormous amount of fuel on that fire. You know what Trump's like with the tariffs and inflation? He's like that scene in Zoolander where they're spraying each other with gasoline, right? Like, woohoo! And then somebody lights a match, and as Trump said about the markets, they're gonna go boom, just not boom in the direction that he was hoping for. So next will be rage. And then Trump will backpedal because he hates having low numbers and he will have disastrously low numbers. And then we'll have another round of uncertainty and what's gonna happen next. But here's what's not going to happen. We're not going to rebuild manufacturing with clown ass tariffs like this.
No. And back to the messaging, I mean, I get it. What you said makes perfect sense, but I will say this, how do you plan for anything? I'd love to declare everybody around him incompetent, but how can you, even Susie, How can you plan for anything when the man at the top seems so emotional and reactionary and somewhat unhinged? Sometimes it seems like some of these people are on the air, Navarro, whoever else, and he's literally tweeted something that's making for breaking news that they can't even keep up with. It's asinine.
Yeah, I think that's an apt description of it, for sure. And just to be super clear, yeah, I actually blame Lutnick and Navarro, et cetera, a lot less than I blame Trump. Because Navarro's pushing his agenda, and I hate his agenda, and he's one of these guys that's just so over the top on tariffs. And I think it does the cause of tariffs actually more harm than good. And so I got no love for any of these guys. But like you mentioned, Susie Wiles, chief of staff, she's perfectly competent. She's shown that she's competent and gotten Trump under control when she needed to on a number of occasions, and we've shared that on the show. But even Susie Wiles can't wrangle the most unwrangleable guy on earth. Because you're absolutely right. Trump won't ever listen to reason, and now that he's gotten elected again, he thinks he's a demigod. He thinks he doesn't need anyone else, and he thinks he's like some sort of supernova genius because he passes dementia tests. And so that's why he just lashes out, and no one can correct him because his skin is so thin. He's so deeply insecure that no one can say, hey, Mr. President, it might not be a great idea to change the tariffs on China literally 6 times in a row within a span of about 3 days. Like maybe we need a little bit more stability. If any of them actually suggested that, you'd be like, what are you talking about? You're terrible, you're fired. I'm very disappointed in my Commerce Secretary. And then he sends them on air, and then when they make clowns of themselves because Trump told them to, then he goes, yeah, I'm very disappointed, right? So there's no winning with this guy.
Yeah. How about this guy, Bill Maher? Bill Maher. He's an interesting guy. People originally thought, boy, he's so far left. And then they thought, oh no, he's somewhere in the middle. He's just a sensible guy. And now it's just all over the place. Take a look at this.
We came to dinner, me, Bill, Dana White, and it could not have been better. Everyone was so surprised, so pleasant. How about this? President Trump, extending this olive branch and we talked about things we had in common, ending wokeness, securing the border. The president was asking him what he thought about policy, going on with Iran and Israel and things. It just it blew my mind. It was right. I was very, very proud.
I think it takes so little to blow someone's ego up, especially when they already had one to begin with. Maybe that's what's going on here. Last month, mega superstar Kid Rock facilitated a dinner between himself, UFC President Dana White, President Donald Trump, and avid Trump critic Bill Maher. Interesting dinner conversation, perhaps. Apparently, it went better than expected. Cenk, before we get into the details about the dinner, I wonder what they served. What were your initial thoughts, your reactions when you heard about Bill Maher getting invited to the White House?
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. If I was Bill Maher, I'd go. I'll defend him all the way on going. Of course, what happened at the dinner is relevant. So let's find out what happened and then judge that as well.
Okay. Let's do it. Well, the dinner was 2 weeks ago at this point. Bill Maher opened up about the experience on this past Friday's episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, and he laid everything out on the table for his audience, transparency, if you will. As you know, 12 days ago, I had dinner with President Trump, a dinner that had been set up by my friend Kid Rock because we share a belief that there's got to be something better than hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. Let me first say that to all the people who treated this like it was some kind of summit meeting, you're ridiculous. Like I was going to sign a treaty or something. I have no power. I'm an effing comedian. And he's the most powerful leader in the world. I'm not the leader of anything except maybe a contingent of centrist-minded people who think there's got to be a better way of running this country than hating each other every minute. So how did the dinner go? Well, off the bat, this dinner could have gone very badly, seeing as Maher brought a list of at least 60 names Trump has called him in the past. So can you imagine? I I don't know that that would even embarrass Donald Trump, but Trump was a good sport about it, apparently signing it and having a grand old time. So they got along, began with some jokes, some levity. Just for starters, he laughs. I've never seen him laugh in public, but he does, including at himself. And it's not fake, believe me. As a comedian of 40 years, I know a fake laugh when I hear it. I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them. The way I was able to talk with Donald Trump, that's just how it went down. Make it what you will. It's emblematic of why the Democrats are so unpopular these days. So the personalities, he vibes with one over perhaps the others. Stereotyping, but perhaps living up to it. Wasn't all jokes and laughter. They also touched on some serious subjects and pressing issues, which he did challenge President Trump on, according to Maher. There were so many moments when, well, I hit him with a joke, contradicted something, and no problem. At dinner, he was asking me about the nuclear situation in Iran in a very genuine, hey, I think you're a smart guy, I want your opinion sort of way. And I said, well, obviously you're privy to things about it, and I'm not. But for what it's worth, I thought the Obama deal was worth letting play out because we made Iran destroy 98% of the uranium, and they were 15 years away from a bomb. And then I said to him, well, we got rid of that. You got rid of that. He didn't get mad or call me a left-wing lunatic. He took it in. So there was that. And there were also some things that they agreed on, including the border needing to be controlled, cops, DEI going too far, et cetera. Seems like they got along fabulously. And some way, somehow, Maher sort of changed his tune on Trump. Why can't we get the guy I met to be the public guy? I'm not saying it's our responsibility to do that. It's not. I'm just reporting exactly what I saw over 2.5 hours. A crazy person doesn't live in the White House. Person who plays a crazy person on TV a lot lives there, which I know is effed up. It's not as effed up as I thought it was. So there you have it. You can hate me for it, but I'm not a liar. Trump was gracious, measured. Why he isn't that in other settings, I don't know, and I can't answer. It's not my place to answer. I'm just telling you what I saw, and I wasn't high. Now, he clarified that he did not go full MAGA following the dinner and is still a staunch liberal. But he does view Trump in a different light now, it seems. Look, I get it. Doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just, talking it's a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent at least on this night with this guy. Do you find this a fascinating and a worthwhile observation, tell-all by Bill Maher, Cenk? Do we need to know this? Do we need to understand this side of Donald Trump? Is that supposed to give us comfort, or just, I guess, what's your takeaway?
Yeah. Okay, so some mixed thoughts on it, but I get it, and overall I'm in favor of it. So, number one, meeting with the president is not a problem at all. I don't care who the president is. If I have an opportunity to meet with the president, I will. In fact, if he's on the opposing side, I might want to meet with him more. Is there anything I could do that helps a little bit? Like sometimes people straw man and they go, oh my God, if you meet with the president and he doesn't walk out a completely changed man, then it was worthless and it was a failure. To get real, of course that's not gonna happen, right? But can you move him an inch? And moving the president an inch is a big deal, right? Can you get him to see a different perspective that he didn't see before? Might that affect him down the road? Those are all mights and stuff, but it's a lot better than not trying. Like, what do you gain if you don't go to the dinner? Nothing. Like, what do you try if you don't go to the dinner? Nothing. I don't see how that helps. So, okay, then how did Bill do at the dinner? Well, look, what he reported back is mixed news in there. I don't particularly care if Donald Trump is nice behind the scenes. Okay, great, God bless. There is one part of that I do care about, which is that when you're with any Democratic leader, it's true, you're always walking on eggshells because ironically, they have thinner skin than Trump. Like if you're not constantly like beseeching and enormously respectful and genuflecting and etc., they're like, huh, our new decline. Like the Democrats are obsessed with status, obsessed. They're constantly looking at your, social ranking. Where, oh, do you have a title? What kind of title? Are you a donor? What kind of donor, etc. Whereas Trump's more like, oh, here's a guy in the room with me. Okay, what do you got? What do you think, right? So that's better in my opinion. Okay, well that's small, right? But like, okay, he was nice to you at the dinner or he's nice to me at a lunch or something. I don't care at all. That doesn't affect the voters and it doesn't affect what I think of Donald Trump because what I care about is how he acts as president. And to be fair to Maher, he's pointing out, yeah, when he's in public, he's a madman, and he is. So is it an act? Is it better if it's an act? Is it worse if it's an act? I don't know. All I care about is, yes, but what does he do, right? And what he does as president so far is totally unhinged. Talking about sending now American citizens to a dungeon in El Salvador from time to time, not listening to the courts is madness, right? So then, okay, now we get to the final and most important part. Did Bill do any good there in some of the things that he brought up? And I would argue yes. So he brought up several things and a couple I was surprised by. And so the fact that he plugged Obama's Iran deal, that's awesome. That he's absolutely right about that. It takes courage to say, hey, the deal that you got us out of was a terrific deal. You should put us back into that deal. So that's speaking truth to power, right? And by the way, that means that Maher is not in favor of attacking Iran, which is what Israel wants. So, and he told Trump that. And Trump views him as an Israel guy, which because he is. And here's somebody, that he views to be on his side on that issue going, don't attack Iran. I'll take it, I'll definitely take that, right? And he even criticizes Gaza policy. Wow, I'll definitely take that, right? So, again, guys, don't be unrealistic. Like, oh, Bill told him at a dinner, so Donald Trump is now gonna go back into the Obama deal on Iran? No, of course not. I don't expect that. Bill Maher doesn't expect that. But is it an extra voice against the war with Iran? And is that a good thing? Absolutely. Hopefully more and more of those voices will add up. So Sharon, when I look at it overall, I don't think it's world changing, but I think it was a good effort and it probably did some good. That's my take on it. What's your take on it?
I agree with you. I wouldn't have an issue with you going in there and coming out and giving your honest assessment. And I'm not suggesting that Bill Maher wasn't genuine or completely honest, but I guess one thing that I'm thinking about, and again, I agree with you, but Donald Trump is some would say con artist, but let's just call him an artist of personalities. And he knows that when he invites you over, how to butter you up and make you feel so good and pretend that he's listening. And maybe he is, okay? The last person in the room can usually have some effect on him. But I wonder what you think about someone going in there with Trump's agenda is, let me play this guy enough so that he'll go normalize me to his following, which is significant. And so I wonder how you feel about that. And again, I'm not saying that happened or Bill Maher is stupid or gullible, but when Donald Trump wants an audience with you, even if Kid Rock set it up, you hate his guts. I think you feel like a chosen one, and that's human nature. So I don't know. I just wonder about that part. By and large, I agree. I would go sit down. I would, okay? And I probably would listen and I'd have some openness, yes. But I just wonder about that part.
Yeah, so actually in our live chat poll, the show's live Monday to Friday, it starts at 6 o'clock Eastern, goes to 8 o'clock. And then we have an extra bonus episode for members. I'm gonna quote another member in a second. But in the live chat we asked, do you think Bill Maher will be softer on Trump now? So that's kind of a post question, right? After the dinner, That's the issue that Sharon just brought up. My issue was, how did the dinner go? Did it help in any way, shape, or form? The secondary thing is now Maher going to lean more towards Trump, etc. And 79% of you think that he will. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I am on a limb on this one, but I'm going to say no, I don't think he will. And I say that as a guy who has heavily criticized Bill Maher, right? And so, but he read a list. So why do I say that? He read a list of the things that that he already agreed with Trump on, including tightening up the border, and he said, going a little too far on DEI and a couple other things. And as he read that list, there was one or two things that I disagreed with. But overall, I was like, yeah, that is what Bill Maher has been saying. And I largely agree with Bill Maher on those things. I disagree on others. And so do I think that he'll go, was that his real list that he already agreed with Trump on? Yes, I've seen him say those things, right? Do I think he'll go further than that, give Trump a bigger break going forward? I can't believe I'm gonna, trust Maher on this, but no, but I do believe it. Look, for those opinions of his that drive me crazy, they are his real opinions, right? And so that's, so he's not faking that. And I haven't seen him fake things before. And he is at a point where he's like, look, I have enough money, I have enough fame. How does it help me to kiss Trump's ass, right? So, but if it turns out he's much softer on Trump, then I'll come back and tell you and say, hey, I screwed that one up, right? But okay, for now, I think that Maher won't, and I'm in the minority on that. So last thing here is from one of our members, Eclectic Miscellanea, right? By the way, you can be a member by hitting the join button below if you're watching on YouTube, or tyt.com/join too. And Eclectic's from tyt.com. So anyway, he wrote in, maybe Cenk could have a productive conversation with Trump, because he would go into the conversation trying to accomplish something important. There's no way that Bill Maher went into that dinner thinking he would accomplish anything other than getting some headlines and inflating his already outsized ego. So Eclectic, I can't get too deep into Maher's psyche and psychoanalyze him on that. But I hear what you're saying, given the past. And I appreciate your compliment about me. But the reason I read that is because he's right in that if I had the dinner with Trump, I would go in with a plan. And the plan would be, how do I get one of our priorities passed? Because everything else is just fun and games, except actual action, bills that pass, or in Trump's case, executive orders, etc. right? So I think Maher did some good by pushing, getting back into the Iran peace deal and not going to war. Could you have done more good if you made a pitch for paid family leave, one that he might be able to understand and actually go for? Well, no, you wouldn't. Would you have over a 50% chance on that? No, but will I take a 20% chance on passing paid family leave under any administration? Yes. And so if you say, hey, that's naive, he'll never go for it. Well, I'd rather have a 20% chance than a 0% chance. So I wish others in media cared as much about actual legislation and policy and really had a plan to be able to effectuate that in a Democratic administration or a Republican administration, but that's probably asking for too much. So overall, jury's out on this dinner so far, but I like the idea, and let's see if you guys are right or I'm right on what Bill does next.
I think he would have gone in there, and I actually think it would have done something. I think he would have said, you know what? Because Dana White and Kid Rock don't care, but he would have said, write something up for me and I'll consider it. I actually think he might have been able to do something. Maybe he'll invite you next. We have much more to come. Do stay with us.
I'm a very stable genius.
All right, back during the social break here. Let's go to Super Chat first. The Dragon Gray wrote in, I'm a general contractor and one of my clients backed out of a $200,000 job this weekend due to unsure market. I knew this was coming, but thought it would be outrageous prices, not the market. So both things are at play, both the prices eventually and the market ahead of time. So that's real life right there. People are already losing contracts, some people losing jobs, and prices are about to go up. So even if Trump backpedals out of all of his mistakes, he'll have done some significant damage in the meanwhile. Make It Make Sense says, happy Monday, Cenk. Can we take a minute to have a laugh at Gretchen Whitmer's hide behind a biter picture that and the memes it'll inspire for the next 2 elections, LOL. Hashtag can we please make politics serious again? We are in fact going to talk about that a little bit later in the show, and it was in fact hilarious. It reminded me so much of the HBO show Veep. But let's save that for a little bit later in the show. Andy Meehan, 2300 writes in, the Trump that Maher describes almost makes it worse for me. I'd rather have a legitimate nutball as president versus someone who's faking being a nutball. He could be reasonable, but isn't. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe we should do a poll question on the website for members. Would you rather have Trump be a legitimate nutcase or pretending to be a nutcase for political purposes? And what purposes would that be? I'm not sure I know which way I'd vote, but neither scenario is very good, okay?
I'm a very stable genius.
Are you, brother? Are you? Darth Dundane writes in, Cenk, love listening to you today on Piers. You were spot on again. Also love how civil you are with Vinny, despite being on opposite sides of some issues. I wish more people would follow your example. Well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Remember, all of our press appearances can be seen on tyt.com/press, so check that out, or almost all of them, and we try to put them up as quickly as we can. Scuba Steve wrote in, tariffs can be useful if you have a plan and can target the right products. Just blanket tariffing can just be price increases. That's the comment I most agree with. Totally agree. Tariffs can be done the right way, but this is definitely not it. Phil J is a little bit more blunt. He just says it's the art of the stupid. And that also is fair if you ask me, given what's happened so far. Moving Death says TYT releases the chemicals in my brain that make me happy. Wow, man. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Scott Auger says time for Trump to be called in contempt and jailed. Scott, love you, brother, but that's not going to happen. So you got to get to a realistic plan. They tried impeaching him and jailing him, and none of that worked. And it's certainly not going to work now. Jenks Left tries some fury on tyt.com says, buy stock in alcohol, antidepressants, and weed. It's going to be a long 4 years, folks. That's true. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Sharon, Anthony Byram, and John Fox. Thank you for joining, guys. They hit the join button below. By the way, you could also just ring the bell or subscribe for free, and those are also very helpful to the show. Appreciate you guys. Sharon, what's next?
Law and disorder, we'll call it. Got some answers today about the Maryland man mistakenly sent packing to El Salvador. U.S. Supreme Court, of course, has ruled that the United States government needs to facilitate the return of the Maryland man mistakenly deported, Maher Abrego Garcia, being held inside El Salvador's mega prison. However, inside the Oval Office today, in a meeting with President Donald Trump, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele shut that down immediately. Said it's not going to happen, this man's return. Bukele called the suggestion of Abrego Garcia's return to the US preposterous.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So leading up to that direct question of the president from El Salvador was Caitlin Collins and Stephen Miller, Trump aide, saying, look, how presumptuous for you to believe that we can just usurp the authority of this sovereign nation and bring someone back who's under their control. How dare you? And then Caitlin Collins, CNN, asked the question directly of the president, well, will you return him to the United States? And so you heard the answer there. Now, attorneys with the Department of Justice filed their brief on Sunday. They argued that a federal court has no authority to direct President Donald Trump or his administration in bringing home wrongly deported Maryland man Maher Abrego Garcia, and should reject a request filed on his behalf by attorneys last week. Mediate with the reporting here. The court should deny plaintiffs' request for further relief. The brief filed by the administration reads, the relief sought by plaintiffs is inconsistent with the Supreme Court's instruction requiring this court to respect the president's Article 2 authority to manage foreign policy. Now, the filing came after lawyers for Abrego, Garcia, and his family asked the court to compel Trump and the federal government to take steps to bring him back to the United States. Abrego Garcia, citizen of El Salvador, was deported there by mistake. The administration admits that, an administrative error, having legal permission to live in the US, where he spent the last 14 years alongside his wife, 3 children. All of them are US citizens. State Department official Michael Kozak filed an update on Abrego Garcia's status on Saturday, indicating, quote, well, he is alive, secure in that facility. He is detained pursuant to the sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador. So not exactly, proof of life. You just gotta take what they say. I mean, that's what he's telling the court, the Trump administration. That's as far as they'll go from what we hear. There's another hearing in federal court tomorrow where you can expect the judge to kind of ramp it up. But it seems like in the last hearing, Cenk, the Trump administration officials are no longer stammering or kind of, cowering even in front of the bench. They're basically saying, oh, well, this is what we're doing and it's not much.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't send people to a foreign prison if we can't get them back. And maybe we shouldn't send them there without checking with the courts first to see if they're the right people or not. That's what we in America call a due process. It's actually one of the foundational pillars of Western civilization. Or we can go with, I don't know who they are, who cares? Let's round them up and let's send them to El Salvador. Oh, I can't get them back, oops. Okay, again, if you're on the right wing, how does that help you? If you want to get rid of undocumented immigrants who are criminals, who are in gangs, like the Venezuelan gang, MS-13, etc. If we start sending in innocent people with them, then everybody's gonna turn against that program. Because if you're a decent person, you don't want to send an innocent guy to a dungeon. We could have a conversation, debate, hey, should we send anybody to El Salvador? Why are we even doing that? Why don't we just deport them to their home countries? Their home country is El Salvador and they broke the law here, that makes sense. They broke the law in their home country is Venezuela, maybe that makes sense, right? Or by the way, if they broke the law here, have them in a maximum security prison, have them serve their time, get justice, then deport them. But all of that is not going to be very popular if you keep sending the wrong guys and go, I don't care that they're innocent, don't care at all. In fact, now we're gonna smear them. Even though we've admitted in court, wrong guy, administrative error. Then I'm gonna turn around and go, I don't care that it was the wrong guy. I like sending wrong guys to the dungeons. Okay, then everybody hates you. Not everybody, some portion of MAGA is like, yes, we sent the wrong guy in. And then, or they're listening to right-wing media and Stephen Miller, and those guys are lying through their teeth, and they're going, oh, he's part of MS-13, he belongs there anyway. But no, courts have already ruled several times here, originally before they picked him up and after they picked him up. You got the wrong guy. And the Trump team admits it in court. And they go, no, I don't want him back though. No, that's just not only is it totally unreasonable, it's un-American. Now it's about to get worse, we're gonna share with you in a second. But on this alone, what kind of monster says, yeah, I sent an innocent man to maybe the worst prison in the world, and I don't mind. I don't care that he's innocent. I think he should just rot in there. It's better that he rot away the rest of his life mistakenly than my ego be affected at all. I just rather pretend I'm right anyway. Person who does that is a really bad guy. Okay, now Sharon, let's tell him how much worse it's about to get.
Well, it could be, you could be next, anyone could be next, any citizen perhaps. During Trump's meeting with Bukele, he also talked about his desire to send American citizens to the prisons in El Salvador. Aaron Rupar posted this clip, Bukele and Trump entering the Oval Office to X.
Criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's big. All right. It's not big enough.
Plus like 20,000 a prisoner or something. It's good business for him. Young leader there. Hard to make out, but Trump says homegrowns are next. We know what that means. The homegrowns, you gotta build about 5 more places. It's not big enough. He brought it up again during the official press conference. If it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now we're studying the laws right now. If we could do that, that's good. It's scary. And maybe the scariest part is he means it, Cenk.
Yeah.
He would love to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I ask MAGA now, really? You guys want to send US citizens? By the way, so far, he's done it with no due process, not even checking with the courts. And you want to give any American president the right to send any American citizen to a foreign dungeon, and we can't get them back based on whether the president thinks they're a bad guy. Joe Biden thought there was a lot of Republican bad guys. Imagine he's like, yeah, I already sent Trump to El Salvador. Sorry, can't get him back. But he was running against you, and we didn't get to judge yet whether he took the national secrets or he did financial fraud or whatever. Sorry, sent him there already. Nothing I can do, my hands are bound. Oh, there goes Stephen Miller. Oh, there goes Peter Navarro. There goes Steve Bannon. Nothing I could do. Once I sent him to El Salvador, they're gone forever. Oh, it was an administrative error. It doesn't matter, I'm not doing due process. I'm not going to the courts. And if the courts tell me to bring him back, I won't. Is that the system you want? You think that's American? You think that's constitutional? No, that is not at all constitutional. That is not at all American. That's a weird, sick thing where you just decide you're authoritarian and can send people to foreign dungeons. So that's exactly what we warned you about. I've said this many times, but populists that are on other parts of the political spectrum, well, why, Cenk, you claim you hate the establishment so much. Why'd you vote for Kamala Harris and even back in 2016 to Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump? Because they were running against Donald Trump. Donald Trump keeps saying it after 2020, after he lost the election. He said, we should terminate the Constitution. He wasn't kidding. His supporters chanted, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. His chief of staff tells him about it. He says he deserves it. That guy's not gonna listen to the law. That guy's not gonna listen to the Constitution. That's why I was so adamant about trying to drive Biden out. Not because I wanted the Democrats to lose, but because I didn't want Trump to win. And Biden in the race was a guaranteed loss. And yeah, that's what happened. Oh, he stayed in until we couldn't fix it anymore. So, look, if you're a right winger and you thought it was all just fun and games and he wasn't really gonna violate the Constitution, that even though he says terminate the Constitution, even though he's done all these unconstitutional things, even though he clearly tried to stay in office after he lost, you thought, no, secretly he loves the Constitution and loves democracy. He doesn't. He only cares about power. He doesn't care about the US Constitution one bit. And by the way, I don't know who those jackass people in the White House were, reporters or staffers. He's like, yeah, maybe we send the homegrowns to your dungeon, right? Send some US citizens to your dungeon. They're like, that's so funny. Who the hell are you? Why is that funny? So, and then last thing is this Kafkaesque thing that the president of El Salvador said, where he's like, no, I cannot send them back to you. What do you want me to smuggle in terrorists? Really, there's nothing the US or El Salvador can do to send one person from El Salvador to America. Can't happen. They haven't invented planes. They don't know how could they possibly do it? Okay, so here, one of our members on TYT.com, Joseph Yakim wrote in, cut the money to El Salvador and the president will return him fast. Exactly right. Like, do we have ways of incentivizing certain countries to do things? Yeah, like when we gave the president of El Salvador $6 million to take in these prisoners. If we said, hey, you know what? Well, that's okay, we're not gonna give you the $6 million. He's on a plane within an hour. Okay, the idea of, oh, there's nothing either leader could do, it's just absurd. Please don't tell me that you believe that. Yeah. So Sharon, at the end of the day, look, I don't know if to what degree his voters will turn on him and what percentage of his voters will turn on him if he tries this on American citizens. But if that doesn't do it, and he actually starts sending Americans to El Salvador, and says, that's it. I'm not gonna ask the courts. I'm just starting to send people I don't like who are US citizens to El Salvador, and I'm never going to bring them back. Yeah, I think his popularity will fall to 12%, but I hope I'm right. But that's mental. I mean, if you're defending that, you just don't believe in this country.
I don't know that I have the same hope, but the one thing's for sure, he's going to push and push and push and test the limits until there are no more boundaries, until he's stopped on this one. Much more to come. That does it for our first hour.
All right, back on TYT. So here's what I'm gonna read a couple comments for you guys, then we'll take another break and go to the second hour where we got some huge stories coming up for you. But first, let me give a shout out to all the folks that are watching and some good points in here as well. Never writes in, my condolences, Americans. I hope you recover from your constitutional crises soon. Yeah, we hope that too. Michael Naper writes in, Cenk looking sassy with his new haircut. Did he also do his brows? Well, actually, I found a Turkish barber in LA and they burned my ear hairs off. So that's super fun. I'm gonna take my son next time. That's actually a real thing with Turkish barbers. So check that out if you get a chance, or don't. Anyway, Michael also wrote, sending love and healing vibes to Anna in case she's watching. As am I. Thank you for remembering that, Michael. We appreciate it. She'll be back soon. Boomer Dragon Cat says, we can refine the message to MAGA. He isn't talking to you now. He never was talking to you. All these years, he's only been talking to the top 10%. The rest of us really don't even register as human to him. Mark my words. Cat, I mean, that's exactly the framing that I'm going with. Not in those words, but like challenge the powerful, criticize the powerful, right? For his voters, remember, he's not even on your side. If you're a Trump voter, you're gonna see, he's on the side of the elites and the establishment. You thought the tariffs were gonna stay forever. We told you they weren't, and they didn't. And now you think that tax cut's coming in your direction. It's not. The great majority is for corporations and the wealthy. And so the 56% go to the rich of just the personal income tax stuff. And then there's another giant giveaway to corporations. So, and when I say the rich, it's like top 1%, okay? So like they're literally giving the richest people in the country trillions of dollars. Trump's not for MAGA, Trump's for the elites. He just does it in a different way. 36 Chambers Dragon wrote in a couple of times. I want to, there's some longer messages I'd love to get a chance to read, but we're gonna run out of time here. He said, I'm so done with Bill Maher. He's such a sellout little bitch. Okay, I hear you, brother, but hold on, give him a chance. Let's see if he does soften up on Trump or if he still holds him to account. And then you could make your judgment. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT here. Just a quick comment from our audience and our members. True Seeker said on TYT.com, Cenk asked, what kind of a monster knows they got the wrong guy but doesn't care? The same guy that found out the exonerated 5 were innocent and still wanted them to be imprisoned anyway. That's referring to the Central Park 5, and that's right. And that's another reason why I voted against Trump. Central Park 5, they thought had committed rape, and it was a ghastly crime. They were imprisoned, and then we found out it wasn't them. We found the real guy with his DNA and everything. They tell Trump, you wanted them executed, but turns out they were innocent. He's like, no, I don't care. They're guilty anyway. They should still be in prison. Based on what? I mean, that sounds like lawfare, doesn't it? So Trump doesn't care about other human beings. I know that his voters don't realize that yet, but they're slowly beginning to realize it, very slowly. But I see it here and there, and people are starting to scratch their heads and go, wait, how do these wild tariffs being on and being off and being on and being off help us? Wait, how does us having ground troops in Gaza help us? How does threatening war with Iran help us? How does any of this, how does going outside the Constitution over and over and over again help us? None of that stuff helps you at all. He doesn't care about you, he just cares about himself. All right, we got to take a break here. So let's go take a break, come back for the second hour. We got some super important stories in the second hour. Russia attacks Ukraine. What am I gonna do with Trump? What's Trump's reaction? Well, you find out when we come back.